Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I have a story this morning that I'm going to dedicate to my old professor on the back row, Joel Gamble. He should appreciate this one. 50 years ago this month, I was a senior in high school and I was graduating from Lake City. And the last few weeks of school, I had no idea. I knew I was going to go to college, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had worked for the student newspaper there at school and writing sports, so I liked doing that, but I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. But my journalism teacher, Catherine Griffin, came to me and said, Trent, they're initiating a new scholarship at Arkansas State called the Tex Plunkett Award. And they're going to give one to a boy and one to a girl. I want you to apply for it. And I said, well, Miss Griffin, there'll be 1,000 people applying for that. There's no way that I'll get it. She said, you apply for it. So she made me fill it out. I went through all what you had to do that, and lo and behold, I got it. That's the only time, I guess, in my life I've ever been the first of anything, but I was the first one to get that scholarship, and I'm still proud of that. I started to school that fall, and 8 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I walked into Joel Gamble's basic news writing class. When I first walked in, it was pretty full, and I noticed that most of the kids knew each other. Well, I didn't know anybody, so I immediately, as I always did when something like that happened, I walked to the back of the classroom and sit in the corner, trying to hunker down where no one would see me. Well, there was another kid sitting across from me. It was the same way. We both were shy. We didn't know anybody in there. About a week into the class, Joel said that he'd come up with something that we were going to have partners. And I can't remember what the assignment was, but everybody immediately got with a partner. And there I am sitting, and I looked across, and this other kid was sitting there. He had nobody, so we kind of looked at each other and smiled, and so we introduced ourselves to one another and hit it off immediately. He had gone to school at Jonesboro. I was from Lake City, so that was kind of different. He was big school, I was little school, but one of the nicest persons I've ever met. Kind of gets to me a little bit because he's not here anymore, but his name was, some of you will know him, Phil Parker. Phil went on to be probably the greatest volleyball and golf coach maybe in Arkansas high school history. We both ended up changing our majors from journalism to something else, but anyway, we hit it off and became fast friends, and over the years, I would run in the field a lot, and he would flash that big smile and come over there and shake my hands. Later on, on the side, he was official in the area, and I did some sports writing on the side, and he would spot me at the ball games, and during a timeout or something, he'd sprint over to the sidelines, shake my hand, ask me how things were going. This went on for, 40-something years. The last time I saw Phil was at a neighborhood Walmart here in Jonesboro, and we caught up on things, and I told Phil, I said, I'm having trouble getting my Social Security started. I said, they're wanting my birth certificate. That's a pain. And he said I had the same thing happen to me, and so he told me what I needed to do, and we talked for a long time, shook hands, he walked off, and then a couple of weeks later, I found out that he had terminal cancer. He never mentioned a word, which was like him. He never mentioned a word to me, and then a few months later, he passed away. But I just think about how God puts certain people in your life. Phil was one of the nicest, kindest men I've ever known. He never had a bad thing to say about anybody, and he never married and never had children, but he had so many people that loved him. All the kids that he taught was around him over the years. Really a special guy. Well, another thing that happened for me to go into Joel Gamble's classroom was we were assigned to write for the student newspaper, the Herald. So I went to the editor, who just happened to be from Lake City as well, John Wallace. John was a senior. Of course, I was a freshman. I knew John from school because we both played basketball and rode the team bus, but he was on the senior high and I had been on the junior high team. So we didn't know each other that well. But anyway, John, because I grew up on a farm, decided to assign me the agriculture beat. Well, I didn't want to do agriculture. I wanted to do sports. So I hung my head and walked out the door, and I can't remember if I went to Joel or to Roy Olkert, who was my advisor during that time, but I said, I'm just not going to do agriculture. I can't do it. And one of them told me that, well, you need to go back to John and to explain your situation and see if he maybe can help you out. So I did. Told him I wanted to do something in sports, so he signed me basketball, which I was thrilled until I found out that I was going to have to meet the coach and start interviewing him. Well, the coach was John Rose, and he was a little short guy, but he was known for being stern and no nonsense, so I was really nervous. I called his secretary, set up an appointment, went there that day. He let me in. I introduced myself. My knees were shaking, but he couldn't have been any nicer. He, for some reason, took a liking to me from the get-go. We sat down, talked a long time. He would always set me up with interviews for the players. I had no trouble doing that. The season started, the first game of the year out at the old Indian Field House, if y'all remember that. Arkansas State won that opener, and after the game was over with, I went back to his office for the interview. Well, when I got back there was it seemed like 1,000, but it was probably more like 10 or 12 other media people, and they were all standing around the door. They all knew each other. They were talking. I knew none of them. They looked at me like I was a foreigner. I thought, how am I going to get an interview with Coach Rose with all these people here? So he comes walking down the hall. They spread apart so he could get to his office door. He puts the key in, turns the key. They start to file in, and he turns around and says, gentlemen, I want you to stop. I'm going to ask you to stay outside for a few minutes because I've got to give an interview to this gentleman right here, and pointed at me. Well, I don't know who was more astonished, them or me, because my mouth flew open, but I couldn't help it. A big grin came across my face, and he put his arm around me, my shoulder, led me into his office, closed the door behind, and he said, you know, Trent, we got to take care of our own first, don't we? And I never have forgotten that. He didn't have to do that. He didn't, and it was a kindness that to this day I have not forgotten. And I think about God who puts people in your lives. I mean, had I not been in Joel's class, I would have never met Phil or Coach Rose. And things like that happen to us throughout our lifetime. You know, it's been 50 years since I was a senior in school. Where the years have gone, I don't know, but I've been blessed with a lot of great people in my life, including all of you guys here in this church. So I just wanted to say today, thank you, Professor Gamble, for opening up that portal for me and letting me meet these people, because without your class, that would have never happened.